Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer Lowry with Monarch, and welcome back to the Let Your Writing Soar series. So today we are going to master that S step, which is state your answer or claim. This is the first part of the sequence, and here is why it matters. So when students are struggling with written responses, now the problem is not always that they have nothing to say. Very often the problem is that they just don't know how to name what they're trying to prove. So here's what they might do. They could summarize, they could copy, they write around the answer. They include evidence before they even know what the evidence is supposed to prove. So they might just start first there in their writing. Or they could just simply freeze, ball up that paper, put their head down, do that fight or flight. Oh, it's time to go to the restroom. So this is where SOAR begins. So the S step teaches students to pause and ask, what am I saying? What am I answering? What am I proving? Now, this one move changes the direction of the whole response because a strong written response, as all of us know, does not just begin with some random sentence or us just paraphrasing the prompt. It has to begin with direction. And when we think about like analogies or visuals, and I'm going to have this for you, I think of the claim as an anchor. And I consider of course, I'm going to have butterflies all around it because that's just my life, right? Monarch, get it? But I really believe that the claim is the anchor and it tells the reader where their written response is going. It also gives the writer a purpose and it allows them to give that gift to the reader because they're kind of setting it up, right? And it just gives every sentence that follows a job to do. So if a student skips S, right away and they just go straight in when they're writing either with a paraphrase or a summary, it just looks like maybe a collection of disconnected thoughts. Like they might have good evidence, but if the evidence does not clearly support anything yet, it's really disjointed and it doesn't tie everything together. So we're missing that strong opening sentence that really sets that stage for the reader. Because hey, they can write several sentences, and I've had students that would write repeated sentences, like they would just restate the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm like, wait, do you see the redundancy here? Like they're looking for word count, right? They're looking, how many sentences do I have to write? And if we say 5, they're just going to write one sentence 5 times. So we really can be left sometimes with wondering what our students are actually trying to say. So in SOAR, we teach our students to begin with like that clear answer or that clear claim because that's where it begins. So here's what I really want teachers to hear. It's like, I do not want students to only write the claim first. Okay, so this is a part of what makes SOAR unique for Monarch. This is based on research. You guys know that I'm never going to put anything out there that is not evidence-based. But I want students to actually say the claim first. So I know that it's going to come first because, of course, we talked about the anchor, but I want us to talk about the speak it first strategy. So this is a Monarch strategy that has birthed itself out of years of experience working with students, oftentimes students with learning disabilities, ADHD, multilingual learners. I've had a vast wealth of experience behind me, guys. And when I tell you that the oral rehearsal before writing can really strengthen students' articulation and the way that they're expressing themselves and really help them see that written language begins with that spoken language. When they say, well, I don't know how to write, well, you're speaking to me right now. So you're actually writing. We just got to put it all down, right? So the oral rehearsal is very important for me and for our learners, especially our learners who have a difficult time like narrowing down all of the thoughts that might be running through their head. The speak it first strategy works. Okay, so I'm going to spend a lot of time on this S because to me, I think if we get this down into our routines and our practices in the classroom, trust me, it's not going to be in vain. You're going to see results. And the results are going to speak for itself. Our students are going to be more confident writers. And that's what we want, right? We want our students to confidently approach the writing in a way that says, yes, I can do this. Yes, I feel like I know where to start, and S is where to start. So let's talk about that. So before the pencil even touches the paper, or if you are using assistive technology or devices, before the fingers touch the keyboard, before the student tries to build a full paragraph, I really employ you to try to say that claim out loud in one sentence with students. And that means that you need to explicitly, directly teach this S over and over again so the students can see your think aloud in action. Okay. So think alouds are different than modeling. If you want to really look at a great video explanation of what is a think aloud, I love my lady over at Meekins Education. She does a great demonstration of this. So I don't want to do that here. We've got all kinds of people out there in this world that can pour into you around how to do a think aloud. But I want to just say, do that, right? You've got to teach S first before you actually say, okay, kids, let's start with S. Let me show me what you can do. I mean, you can do that as a pre-assessment, but you understand that you are going to have to explicitly think aloud, model, provide examples, non-examples, and have students to really watch you walk through and struggle with this process. And yes, struggle with it and show them the reality of how oftentimes it might be difficult to state claims from text, because it doesn't always come easy even to adults. So you've got to be transparent with students so they can see that this is a working out of a process. The writing process starts with stating that claim. All right, so I've got that. Say it before you write it. I hope you got that like in your mind right now. And I call it the speak it first strategy. So speak it first is going to be throughout our Monarch protocols. Speak it first really matters for multiple reasons. I'm going to do a whole video series just on speak it first, but just trust me on it. I have seen this work time and time again with my own children in homeschool, with my children in college. So this is high school, middle school, elementary worthy, college worthy. Speak it first. Okay. So now I want you to understand that we got to kind of give kids a number, because of course they're going to want to know, well, how much do I need to speak, right? Or how long do I speak? How many? Because they're always so in tune with wanting to know, what does that product look like so they can hit that expectation. So let them know that the speak it first strategy, they just really need to come up with a clear, concise one sentence for this S, okay? Not a paragraph. They don't have to go into the whole explanation. Now, they could be doing that as a brainstorming process, which is fine, but that speak it first, even if they're speaking it to you, think about speaking it to their assistive technology. They can do their own recordings. They can use that as a part of their brainstorming, and they can record it to their devices on Vocaroo. I love that app. Thanks to my old boss before I retired, who shared that with me. Thanks, LaTanya. Shout out to you. So they could do a whole explanation, but the product that they need to achieve is that claim. They got to do that claim, state the answer, state the claim. So they're putting this out, right? And here's why it matters. Because, when we're speaking, writing is not just spelling, grammar, handwriting, typing, or sentence structure, or rhythm, or word choice. It is those things, right? But writing ultimately is thinking. And that's where I would have conversations, metacognitive conversations with my students around what is writing. Writing is thinking. Writing is thinking out loud, decision making, and then putting it down on paper. It's planning. It's language. It's also important that we self-monitor our writing. So that's going to be a big part of SOAR. And ultimately, why are we writing? Because we're problem solving, right? We're trying to take pieces of a puzzle and put them all together that make sense to us through our perspective, through our lens, to help others. So what is writing? Okay, so that is something that I feel like we can nail down with our students too when we're talking to them like, look, writing is thinking. So thinking out loud can help students bridge that gap to putting it on paper. Another thing I want to talk with you guys about is the permission to skip. So with SOAR, if they are working this out, now, if we ask a developing writer to immediately produce a polished claim, now we may be asking that student to do too much at one time. So if we want to lower the pressure, and I love me some low stakes writing, okay, but if we want to lower the pressure here, and they're speaking it, and that's becoming that bridge, but then, like, they're speaking it, but the idea is visible, right? It's like visible out in their little thinking bubble. They could even, put some little thought bubbles out there. You could do all kinds of graphics with this. Other students can hear it. Their partner can hear it. You can hear it as the teacher. But if you see that they start like to go very vague, or maybe they don't even realize that they quite don't have a handle on it yet. So they just might say, okay, I'm giving you an example. The author's saying friendship's important. Well, that's not wrong. It's a start, right? But we need to coach our students. Well, then, what kind of friendship is this? What's the author showing about friendship? Are they saying it helps them to change or grow or forgive or become accepted or even be brave? Like, what else is it saying about this friendship? Like, what's that catalyst point that we need to work with? So now the claim might become the author shows that true friendship gives people courage when they feel alone. So that's just an example. And I'm thinking of a study in Terminal right now, our first book that we published with Monarch. And so I'm just kind of talking about the friendship within that develops over time, because he did need the courage to face what was happening with him, his past, and that friendship helped cross that divide. And he felt alone until he didn't. So yay. Happy ending. Okay, no more spoiler alerts to A Study in Terminal by Carolina Berg. I won't go there. So as you can see, if you question students, that might just be what it takes. Like, you like pushing in a little bit. You can build word banks around this to give students opportunities to pick words. Now, we're going to talk more about differentiation and all of that later. So I'm just going to like leave that part alone. That's going to be a separate video because I'm just trying to get you to understand the speak it first strategy and how you can speak back, right? You can do these questioning skills back and forth. Now, here's one of the things that we really like. If we ask students to speak it back and they don't know, one of the questions that you can ask right away, like what you can speak back, is like, what is the prompt really asking us to do? Because oftentimes they just might not quite understand the prompt. It might not be written in a language that's accessible to them. And they're like, clueless. I don't even know what they're trying to say. So having them to paraphrase, restate the prompt might just be something that you can get them to do first out loud as you're questioning them. And I'm going to tell you guys, that question does matter because many students don't struggle just, people will say, well, they're lazy or they're careless or they don't really like writing. Well, they struggle because maybe they just have not unpacked that task yet and they haven't that repertoire of language to be able to access it. So you might need to kind of go there with the prompt and try to start helping them dive deeper into the prompt piece. So, all right, so let me go on and talk to you about the permission to skip. Now, I can say, well, can you answer it in your head first? Do you want to jot down some, little words here that can help you? Do the speak it first strategy with a partner, or speak it first with me, or in a small group. Let's try speak it first. And let's start kind of wrestling around with what everyone is thinking and how can we make this claim into one, right? So you can do that gradual release model very well with the speak it first strategy. Now, they can switch, partners can listen, you can give feedback using fly. You don't have to turn this into a very long activity now. I don't want you to think that it's going to take weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks with just S, because it doesn't work that way. We don't have time for that. But they do need to see that oral step is a bridge. So now that you're there and the kids are like, I don't know. So sometimes teachers might say, well, come on, yes, you do know. Come on, I know you know this. Well, maybe they don't know it. So you might say, like a teacher might go, well, just write something down, like better than nothing. Instead of like saying that, like, come on, like just keep prodding them, like, oh, well, they keep saying, I don't know. That means that that student's frustration level can go up. And it might not be a motivational problem. It might not be like a behavior problem. It actually could be instructional data that can help serve you. So when I don't know, that is a signal. That silence, even when they're not writing, is a signal. That's telling us something. So here's what it could be telling us, okay? Maybe the student has not read the text close enough. Maybe they need a reread. Maybe they need an annotated part of the text. Maybe they need a reteaching piece. Or maybe it's telling us that the student just does not have enough background knowledge to even understand the issue, right? So those are some different things that I want you to think about, because it may be telling us that a student might have an idea, but they just don't have the academic language to express it yet. Or they could be an evidence first thinker. Now, I have met students that can go both ways, right? They want to start at the top and go all the way down. Then I've met other students who want evidence first. They want to pull out what we call the golden lines. They pull out the golden lines. I can't even tell you where I got the golden line word from. I'm sure it's out there in the world. But I've used golden lines for years. You can also call them the power lines that connect. But now we got power lines under the ground, so it's really hard to kind of do that kind of visual. But if you're still living out in the country like me, that's a good visual. I love visuals, right? It's how these lines are linking together, like carrying the current. I'm going to show you guys all these visuals. They're here to come. Trust me. I've got them all in my brain. I just got to work them out. um, so some students might need to gather before they claim. And I love that word gather, right? Because that, instead of just saying like, oh, find two pieces of evidence, just go look for words. Like, no, you're gathering, you're collecting. And when you're collecting, then that means that you can work through what the author is trying to say, and then you can provide that quality over just the quantity, right? So you could give the student the permission to skip. Now, that is step 3, and I want you to stay true to this, okay? Because if they say it out loud, but it's so vague, or you can really tell that they're just grasping for straws, right? Move them into 3. The permission to skip writing the claim first, and then go straight into the evidence, the text itself, and to have them to start gathering. Now, there's different ways they can gather. I have an evidence collector. I want you to think of it like kind of like as a butterfly net, right? They're going in and they're swooping in and they're finding the ones that they want to showcase. Now, they're going to be wrestling with the text. This is where they might start noticing some patterns that they didn't notice before, because they are going into the text with a specific job to do, which is to gather. Okay? So in SOAR, I give students permission to skip, only temporarily though, okay? It's not like they just start with the evidence first, that they will have to go back in and structure their writing so that way they have that hook, they have that claim in there, they have that answer in there, so it all ties together, but give them permission to skip temporarily, all right? And I'm going to give you some different things to help you do this as a teacher. But of course, I want to talk with you. This is a really great article. If you guys have access to get articles, thank God I do. I love my job. Thank you, Jesus, for my job, because I have databases. I really want you to look at this one from Kautenberg et al. Now, this is another meta-analysis. I love the meta-analysis because they do a lot of that big, heavy lifting for us, right? They pull a lot of different ones. And so here's what we see. We see that they can share 7 core components around writing interventions that work, okay? So I want you to look at these. This to me is nothing new. This is what we do all the time. But I think it's great to look at this list of 7, number 1, because 7 is my lucky number, but number 2, because it makes sense and it reminds us of what matters when we're teaching writing. So when we are thinking about, well, where do we start? How do we work this life? Look at sequencing. We're doing that right now with SOAR, right? We're talking about repetition, working this over and over again. This is not just like the first time one and done we talked about in that SOAR framework. This is not a one and done. Practice. Multiple ways and means of expression is so important. That's all about our UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. And I'm going to be diving into that in separate videos. But we're segmenting the instruction right now because we're really focusing on the S. Either they're stating the answer or claim, or they're skipping it to go and look for evidence. So it's like they have two roads diverged in a yellow wood, right? They're going in two different ways. Now, directed questioning, we've already talked about that, and this is how your speak it first strategy is going to work in your favor, because directed questioning can only happen is if you get opportunities to respond. Those are our OTRs in what we call opportunities to respond, and we want our students to have multiple ways to respond. So we want to give them opportunities to share their thinking, so that way we can direct questions back to them that allow to elicit stronger, deeper thinking, or to really get to the root of what's going on, which could be background knowledge, haven't wrestled with the text enough, like all those things that I just talked about. And then, of course, we want to control this task difficulty. We want to use our task analysis. We want to break things down. We want to make sure that we are building our text sets that also help to produce that background knowledge needed to be able to write around the topic or subject. And then, of course, strategy cues, which that's my life. SOAR is a strategy cue. We're doing that right now. So as you can see, I'm not going to give you any kind of framework without having research to back it up. And today's focus is on state the answer or claim, or skip it to go to offer the best evidence, but we're going to just do that temporarily, right? So it is okay. Smart writers sometimes just need to look at the evidence first. I know that's how I work. How do you work? Can you just go from top down? Or do you really need to gather your evidence, collect it, wrestle with those evidence pieces? Yeah, I keep saying the word wrestle. Like, yeah, I grew up watching wrestling, like Rock and Roll Express and Ric Flair. Come on, Four Horsemen. So I keep saying wrestle, but it's really what we're doing, right? We're molding it and shaping it and figuring it out, and we're trying to see how it fits into the bigger picture. So yes, sometimes we do need to really pull apart that evidence and spend just a little bit more time in it. It's almost like, good marinating. That's what this is about. So then what do? We just send the student back to the text with a clear job, though, and we can give them ways to do it. We can say, find out what's the most important. See what you can gather. What can you gather that you feel might be important? Well, if they say, well, nothing's important, then maybe you can direct them to certain paragraphs. You can scaffold this work. You could say, find the golden line in paragraph 4. Or, you can get that explicit with them, with their jobs to do. And then you ask us, well, then what does that detail show us? What does it tell you? And that question can help that claim emerge from that evidence. So let me go back to a study in terminal. Okay, so our character. So I want you to think about him having like access to a friend that's going to help build up his courage. Okay, so what does the author suggest about courage with this, right? So the author, they'll read this line, and then the author suggests that courage means doing what is right even when someone's afraid. So what would be the right thing to do in this point, right? When you're facing a fear or a challenge or someone coming after you, like what happens in this book, he had to step away. He had to really, I guess, like man up. Even risking his life for that. Like, he was afraid, I'm sure, and he ran and he thought his life was over. So he still had to figure out, am I going to do the right thing in this? So if a student goes back to the text and maybe finds that characters admitting the fear or like showing the fear, then maybe they'll start to kind of see where those patterns will begin to emerge. And then you can ask, well, what does that evidence show? Well, he was scared, but he still did the right thing. Now, That's when you can start using their words that they're speaking out loud to say, well, then how do we go back up and form this into a claim? So now maybe we can help students make it more academic by giving them sentence frames. Maybe we can give them a word bank. Maybe we can jot down words that they're saying as they're speaking so then they can use that back as a scaffold. Because here's just one that you could use as a model. Well, the author suggests, or you would say Carol Linneberg, right? The Carol Linneberg suggests that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite fear. Now, there's the S step. But the student needed the O to get back to the S. And that's not a failure. That's reading and thinking and decision making and writer development, right? So just remember the S has two pathways. They are stating the answer or claim or they're skipping it. And if they can't state it yet, they're going to skip to the evidence. They're going to gather what the text is showing. Then they're going to return back to the claim with more confidence. And that's important because we don't want students just to fake a claim or just try to make things up off the air just to fill in a blank. We really want them to go in and become decision makers, problem solvers within the writing space. So I would rather them go into a carefully discovered claim than a weak claim written quickly. Okay, that's just my kind of framing. So, because writing is about making meaning, and reading is about making meaning and sense making, and so if this is a connector piece, so sometimes meaning takes a minute, and that's the language that you can use. So, if a student is stuck right away, then you can say, "Hey, that's okay." Smart writers sometimes need to look at the evidence first because you've got to start using that positive affirmation pieces with this, okay? So anytime you're working in a writing space and students are coming with all of that baggage, okay, all of these negative experiences possibly around writing, or they may have gaps in their learning, they may have dysgraphia, they might have a fear of the writing. So use look, let's not force that claim yet. Go back to the text, and then we're just going to let the evidence help us. Start using words of affirmation within your responses back to your students. So then maybe you can say oh, y'all, I love notice and note. Okay, my beers and pros people, I love them. What's the author showing you again and again, right? You've heard of those kinds of questions that we can start looping in. So this is where you could possibly start doing those directed questions again. Just let that evidence speak. And once the students gather the evidence, we're going to bring them right back to S. And now we're going to ask them, now that you have some evidence that you've gathered, what is one big idea where that both pieces support? And then that one big idea becomes a claim. And now this is where you can teach students the difference between a topic, a summary, and a claim. Because, they can get stuck on that too. Writing is multifaceted, and they can have a lot of different areas where they've got to have that firm understanding, and that could be right there. Because the topic's going to name what the text is about. The summary just is retelling of what has happened, and the claim makes a point about what the text means. Okay, so those are some things that you can do right there as well, because your students might have to have an access point that is going to be different. And that's what SOAR is designed to do. So SOAR gives a structure for teachers, but it also allows students to know where to start, okay? And that's that S. Where do you start with S? You start with S, you're stating or you're skipping. So I really loved how I have built this framework because I feel like it can really reach a lot of students. I have seen it in action. I know that it works. So I can't wait to hear from you because S is not just the first letter. S is the anchor. So when we're asking them to state it, to speak their claim, to understand the direction of their response, you're giving them this safe space and the strategic next move. So I hope that you have found this to be very helpful to you. And we begin with S because that's where it starts, right? The sequence is important. They're organizing their thinking. They're learning to communicate with purpose. They're learning how to start to write with confidence. And that is how we help their writing soar. And I'm going to do another video that has to do all about O, A, and R. So stay with me in this writing series. If you love it, please let me know. Comment down below some maybe struggles that maybe you have seen with your students and what has helped them. All of your comments can help other teachers, educators, homeschool families, students even, as they're watching this video, help them learn how to navigate, to become more confident writers. And that's what the SOAR framework is all about. All right. Hope you guys have a blessed day. All right. I am going to stop my share now and I am going to stop recording. I'm going to do more of that. I have so much that I wanted to go over, but I think I did a great job just hitting it all for you guys. I made a whole long video and I didn't do quite all of the slides, but that's good.